Well, shooters and reloaders out there, it's Fortune Cookie 45 LC coming to you from the hot lead zone. And it's nice getting back from Hawaii, getting back into the regular swing of things. And this video is the story of a gun. And we always remember our first Centerfire rifle, don't we? In my case, Remington Model 700 BDL. And this one is in 25-06 caliber. So let me tell you about how I came to get this rifle. So back in 1971, there were 4 of us that really enjoyed going out and doing ground squirrel hunting, varmint shooting, if you will. And we went up to Weed, California. Well, the one, Doug, had a 270 and also a 222 Magnum. And they had 22 long rifles also, and various handguns, and Ray had a 30 carbine, but I didn't have anything. So came time for me to say I've got to go get a centerfire rifle to shoot ground squirrels. And so the 4 of us went together to Montgomery Ward to shop for a rifle. Well, Montgomery Ward had their Western Field line of rifles, but that was in the 22s and in the lever actions, this kind of thing. But the bolt actions, they still had the Remington Model 700 BDL. So I went there with my 3 friends, and they didn't have any 223s. They didn't have any 222 Magnums. That's what I really wanted. But they had the 25-06. And of course it's got the skinny 24-inch barrel because it's more or less of a deer hunting rifle type, or mule deer, or this kind of thing. Long range, but not necessarily for varmint shooting. But because the caliber was well adaptable to varmint shooting, I went ahead and purchased this rifle from Montgomery Ward. And the first time we went to the range to shoot it, got a box of factory ammo. Looked kind of like this, Remington, and shot from sandbags with iron sights, and shot less than a 2-inch group with iron sights at 100 yards. And that kind of amazed my friends because they didn't think iron sights could shoot like that. But you know, we were young in those days and the eyes were good, so no problem. Well, let's give you a close-up look at this fine rifle. Now that stock happens to be a Bell & Carlson aftermarket stock that I added on this rifle later. The early version, when we were using it on 3 ground squirrel hunts, was the factory wood stock. Notice the fine bluing and the jeweled bolt on that 700 BDL. Now the fine Model 700 BDL action is a 2-position safety, has 2 lugs in the bolt, but the cartridge is recessed into the bolt face. The bolt face locks into the back end of the barrel, so you have 3 rings of steel. It has a floor plate that is droppable, so you can unload cartridges, and an adjustable trigger. Now before our first ground squirrel hunt with this rifle, I went ahead and put a Redfield 4-12 power scope on it in Redfield mounts. These are the kind of mounts that are one piece, and then the rings go ahead and engage here, and then the whole scope swings in, and then you have windage adjustable base, and that's kind of a nice feature. Now this Redfield scope was the Leupold scope of its day. When you wanted to get high quality optics, you went Redfield in those days. And this is a adjustable objective, 4 to 12 power adjustable magnification ring right here. and it has turret adjustments for 1/8 inch adjustment at 100 yards. It was a fine shooting rig. So there you see the trigger guard's been removed, and also the magazine floor plate, and there are the two screws, the action screws, one longer one that's in the back and the shorter one's in the front. But there's your barreled action, and you see the magazine, see the tubular receiver and the trigger. Now, I've never had any problem with the Model 700 trigger. I know you've heard some reports about the 700 trigger having problems, but never had any problem with mine. This slim barrel is pretty accurate. It shoots about 3/4 inch. So friends, here is the original stock of the Remington Model 700 BDL. The stock has an RKW finish on it, which is kind of like a hard plastic, but it's very attractive. The stock features pressed checkering, which is actually pretty well done. Show you the front. Not as nice as cut checkering, but very serviceable, and it does give a fairly good grip on the stock. The Remington 700 BDL stock has a very nice rollover cheek piece, nicely shaped pistol grip. The whole rifle with the scope weighs just under 10 pounds. Now, my friends favored the Harris bipods, so I got one of those too, but it's not on this rifle right now because it's on my Remington 700 BDL varmint rifle, 6mm. But I should get another Harris bipod for it. Happens to be on sale at Midway USA now. Might go ahead and get that. I was on the third squirrel hunting trip that the four of us asked a fifth guy to come along, and this guy was Larry, and Larry had just come home from a tour in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. So what happened was he joined us to shoot ground squirrels and had a great time. Well, Larry and I teamed up as a two-man team with this rifle, and so he would spot for me while I shot at the ground squirrels at about 450 yards. And the 25-06 with the 87 grain Sierra bullets really did a good job at that distance. So it was like this: he'd find a ground squirrel, and then I'd set up and touch one off, and if we got a hit, you could hear it because the rifle would go into recoil and I wouldn't be able to see the ground squirrel that I just shot at, but you could hear the bullet hit the ground squirrel. Even the other three hunters that were hunting the creek bed could hear the hits being made. And so we had a good time shooting ground squirrels, varmint hunting. Interesting thing is that guy Larry became my brother-in-law. And so Larry, if you're watching, hi there you rascal, and welcome to the hot lead zone. Turns out that in those days all the scopes had what they called a dual X reticle, which means that you had heavier crosshairs coming down to a center real fine crosshair in the intersection. There weren't any of those complicated scope reticles that you see today. So that's what this one has, but the Redfield is a very good scope for long range because it's so clear. It is the loophole scope of the day. Now, for those of you who don't know the Remington 700 action, very smooth action. And you decock it by pressing the trigger as you lower the bolt. Now, in the trigger guard, you have the bolt release, which you press upward, and then the bolt comes out for cleaning. And in the front of the trigger guard, right here, you drop the magazine floor plate to dump your cartridges out. Now the 700 ADL has a blind magazine, does not have a droppable floor plate. So the BDL has that, ADL does not. That's an easy way to tell the difference. You look at the bottom, you have a floor plate on the BDL, no floor plate on the ADL. Now in the field, when we were walking and hiking to get to our shooting positions, we never had our guns loaded and the actions were always open. So with the open action, and you could always see that there were no rounds in the gun, we maintained a very good safe relationship through all the walking that we had to do to hike from the road all the way back into the areas where the ground squirrels could be shot best. You won't see much copper in there because I removed that copper before I put this rifle away for storage. So when I take this rifle to the range, we're going to be using this Remington Peters 87 grain load with the Sierra bullets, and this is so full of powder, it's a compressed charge because there's nothing shaking in there. Now next to that one we have a Hornady 117 grain interlock bullet load, and this one has a little bit of rattle in there. So the loading density is about probably 98% in that one. And the Remington Peters is actually a compressed charge. This factory round is actually about 40 years old. This one was purchased from Midway USA recently. It's the Hornady 117 grain. Now I need to give a big expression of thanks to Idea Machine IM out of the Coachella Valley in California, Palm Springs area. And what he did was he sent me these 25 caliber bullets. These are Speer Grand Slams, 120 grainers. And then also he sent me some of these Hornady 25 caliber 117 grain SST bullets. So those are some fine bullets. Let me show you those. So on the left are the Speer Grand Slam 120 grainers. On the right, the Hornady SST 117 grainers. Now the Grand Slams could probably be used all the way up to elk with good broadside shots. But the Hornady SST we probably want to limit to mule deer because the expansion may be too violent to be used for elk. Now I've also got to give a vote of thanks to John B. E. That's John E. out of Fairbanks, Alaska, because he sent me these nice 38 special cases and also these nice 357 Magnum cases, a whole bag full of those, a couple hundred of those in there, and then probably about 50 or 60 44 Magnums and some 45 ACP and 9mm. So he gave me a assortment of brass, so thanks to John E. out of Fairbanks, Alaska. Now also a special vote of thanks to Mike B. because he gave me this. Mike B's son has served in Afghanistan and also in Iraq. And what this is a US Model 69 practice fragmentation grenade casing. So you see it's been opened up so there's no powder in there, and the fuse that goes in is a practice fuse only that does not detonate, and these are used for training purposes. The real thing are the Model 67s and the Model 68s. But this is fairly heavy, and again it's a fragmentation grenade that uses composition B for the explosive, and then it uses a pyrotechnical type of fuse with a lever on a safety lever and a pull ring. So thanks to Mike B because of this generous gift, and also for his son who served the country so well in Afghanistan and Iraq. So this concludes my story of the gun, my first centerfire rifle, Remington Model 700 BDL in 25-06 Remington caliber.